Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Meeting Protocol Monthly podcast, where we chat with some of the coolest people in the biz and bring you useful and relevant information about what's happening in the world of meeting planning. I'm Dora Figueredo, the head of events and education here at Meeting Protocol, coming to you from New Jersey, where it is an unseasonably warm, almost 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Celsius. So I am wearing, for those of you watching YouTube and not listening on Spotify, you'll see me in my crazy summertime flower print shirt. And today I am so excited to introduce you to not just one, but two outstanding women in the industry. I'm truly fangirling here to have them both. If you have not yet heard of them, I am thrilled to put them and their contagious enthusiasm on your radar. Our first guest is Sasha Saladziak. Currently the director of special events at Live Nation in Toronto. So if you've been to a Live Nation event up there, probably she's had her hand in it. So thank you for all of the cool events you put on. With impressive experience, previous experience at the Four Seasons, JW Marriott, Starbucks, and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. And next is Samantha Milley, the creative connoisseur, an event solution architect and relentless innovator who was recognized as one of PCMA's 20 in their 20s in 2018. This award celebrates the next generation of disruptors in the meeting industry. And so I am just so thrilled to be able to introduce you all to the two of them today. Both of them were also recently on Courtney Stanley's 2023 Women to Watch list. Another amazing woman in the industry that we need to get on this podcast. So she has facilitated a couple meeting protocol certification courses. So some of you all might already be familiar with her. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Sasha, could you start us off by telling us where you're joining from today and the quick background of what even got you into event planning?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Dora, for the beautiful introduction. And hi, Samantha. I'm in Toronto. Again, we're on the Eastern Seaboard here, so it is beautiful, hot and sunny. Born and raised from Toronto, proud person of our beautiful, diverse city, of how we bring culture, arts, and like entertainment together. And there's always something for everyone. And I'm actually at one of our venues right now, History, just enjoying working here today. And if you see my dog Bruce join, don't be shy. He's kind of part of the whole deal at Live Nation as well. So
yeah, thank you. How about you, Sam?
So I'm from Toronto, also like Sasha, born and raised thoroughbred Torontonian. I know, right? Sasha, I knew that, but I didn't really like put two and two together. So that's amazing. I
it's a dying
also,
breed.
it really is. It really, really is. You've pretty much captured the essence of the city. I mean, to kind of talk about how we got into, well, Sasha, to talk about how you got into the industry. So I'll just
Yeah,
quickly
I
mention
guess I
it.
missed that part right off the hop. I think I like to love space, right? But in terms of the industry, I think it really came from a place of my values and how I was raised. So my family was the type that, Eastern European. Sunday dinners were super important, but always very thoughtful and intentional. So I was the kid, even at my own birthday party, kind of bossing everyone, going, no, you have to sit here. I want to cut the cake, right? So I guess my parents set me up for that, but I really didn't find my calling into events until probably about 10 years ago with Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment. And someone took a chance on me and saw some potential. Someone who became a mentor who said, you actually have a really good eye for special events and pulling things together in a project way. And so that's where I kind of left the hospitality, like the hotel and restaurant side, and thought, I could put all this operational experience to use and really create magic moments. And I always keep growing, right? So I've been with Live Nation now for a year and a half and starting their brand new division in Canada to take the power of live to our special events that we do in our cities from coast to coast. So lots to discover and still lots to learn from the older and the younger, right?
Yeah. I love the way you described that little description you said, making magic moments. I love it.
Hit us with it, Sam.
Well, the only reason why I said that is because it's a great intro to our topic. So I was in high school and I went to an art school, and every month we had these talent shows. And being a dancer, we were always performing, putting on shows, rehearsals, and there's always a coordinator. And I happened to like volunteer myself as that. And it was our career day where Balu Takur from George Brown came in, and he was giving a career session on event planning. And I was like, this is kind of cool. What is event planning? Like, I don't know what this is. And I sat in his half-hour session and was like, oh my God, I could see myself doing this. And I was so engaged. I was so into it that like went home and I was like, okay, to my parents, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm going to be, what I'm going to grow up to be. And literally have not turned away from that back in 2008. I have been on a trek to innovate and inspire and really activate, and also be back to George Brown to pay respects to how I got into where I am now. So I honestly have Baluta Kerr to thank for introducing me to the event industry.
So good.
Great. I love it. Okay. So today the three of us are chatting about engaging the next generation. Generations that sandwich your own, no matter how young at heart or old soul you might feel. I know my husband, he's about my age, he's just under 40, and he is a blues guitarist, and all of his friends are like 65 years old because he listens to the blues. And so I always tell him he like, you must feel really old, like an old soul, but you know, he's only 40, so he's not actually. Yeah, no matter how close to other generations you are, like their exact experience and mindset and need sometimes feels really elusive. Existing at the same time as a younger generation, or even raising your own next gen children, doesn't necessarily make their culture and slang and ways of being super accessible. And with Gen X replacing retiring boomers at the highest level at all industries, and millennials rising the ranks now while managing new Gen Z folks, we are in a time of major flux. And you know, that includes more than just learning how to use TikTok. So I'm going to start off with a pretty big question, and I'll let either of you answer it, whichever spirit takes first. What are the biggest changes that you're seeing due to the influence of this next generation?
Well, I think I think technology, obviously the first to hop off my head. We're all like to these, these screens we have. What's the status now, or the rate, right? There's over, if we have, I don't know how many billion people we have in the world, there's twice as many phones, right? So, I think the way that technology has really played a role and how that all has changed. I know that's an obvious answer, but like how they can use that more to their benefit, I think. And their ways of communicating and creating community is completely different than, say, we did when we were younger, right? So
yeah, I want to also say, for me, I'm noticing a lot of the next generation really focusing on balance and work-life balance. Like, we were kind of taught, work hard, 24 hours if you need to get the job done, where their next generation is, well, sure, I'll put the time in. I'll work hard, but I also want to work smart. And so what do my weekends look like? What do my evenings look like? How do I balance the influx of hours? And so it's kind of inspiring that they're kind of really coming with this ideology right off the hop from school. And so it's really about embracing that and kind of incorporating that into the next generation corporate culture of businesses and finding that balance. For sure.
Yeah, I saw that last week. I was in a session with speaking with about 30 students from the Future Hotelier Society, and it was put on by students for students, and they invite guest speakers, and it was so amazing to see. And maybe this is just I'm learning, right? Like through the younger generations as well, but how well spoken they were, and exactly to your point about how do you create balance, how do you create boundaries, and this is like, I think people in our age group in like their mid-30s and even above just still struggling to create boundaries. And it's amazing how they've been able to learn from us and almost skip all that stress and weight and challenge. And like, I think it's so beautiful that they're figuring out how to find something that speaks to their values so much younger than we are at this point, right? Still trying to discover that for some people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's true. And to go back to the point you made first, Sasha, about like having phones, and that's like such a unique identifier. Like, my parents aren't walking around with their phones out the way that I am, obviously. But I think about what does that mean for events? Like, at a time where we're like finally, after all these really hard couple of years, we're coming back in person, we're like really understanding the value of what it means to be together, and also like still sitting in these rooms together kind of looking at our phones, heads down. And so like, how do we ensure that we're making our attendees feel really engaged and not want to pull out their phones? How do we, I feel like this is such an evergreen question of like, what does engagement actually look like for the younger generation who are so used to communicating through their phones, whereas like the three of us had kind of both sides of that growing up?
I still think that the face-to-face connection or the virtual connection and community is still very strong and relevant for all generations. But I think that they're using platforms like a Teams or they're making their own systems to build the community a little bit tighter and a little bit more like forward thinking. And it's just, there's so many different barriers too when you're younger. You may not have the resources. You're at home. You've got another job. That's why technology, I think, has helped them stay more connected because they physically can't get together all the time, right? So, I don't know if you have any input. I know that you were at the George Brown event earlier this week.
Yeah. So I want to just rewind back. So in the virtual space, a lot of the designing that I was doing was whether it was a hybrid model or whether it was a virtual model, like what is going to get someone to engage in a game. Like it's easy to throw trivia up there, but like who's actually motivated to do that? And I think what I'm seeing now from the next generation is we're designing for the introverts and the extroverts, where before it was like, oh, everyone's going to play the game or everyone's going to do this, but not everybody wants to do that anymore. And now we're identifying, quiet areas or different activations that help to engage different personalities. And I think that's what's really beautiful. It's coming from the next generation. Like, it's not just like one whitewash of an engagement activity. We're really diving into personalities to help tailor the motivation behind the activation. I think that's like a really key lesson that I'm kind of understanding now as I'm talking to more students for the next generation.
Yeah, beautiful call out.
Yeah, that's true.
Choice bring.
Yeah, the motivation behind it and the objective behind it is really important. I think that some people get really caught up in like the flashiness of something and the like coolness of something, but like, what's the why? What's
totally
what does it actually mean for the people who are going to interact with it? That's a really great point. So Sasha, as an instructor, Sasha, are you also instructing at George Brown?
Yeah, I'm actually just starting in about 10 days. So I actually do have formerly was a teacher, a TA when I graduated school because I didn't know what I wanted to do, as most people don't when you're like entering the world as a 19-year-old or 20-year-old just graduating. You're like, what do I want to do? And I actually was able to stay back and become a teacher while postgraduate at University of Guelph for their hospitality program. So kind of caught my eye early on that was something I really liked doing, or the introverted side of me. And that now I feel like, I'm excited to like change a little bit of the narrative, but like learn and like see how things are done differently. And like, I think it even goes beyond necessarily George Brown, but like, so what are we doing at a high school level and a community level about our industry and the change that our leaders are going to do and how they're going to help serve the future of what we make magic at, right?
Yeah, that's true. Like, what are you guys seeing? What is your hope for what can come next? What does it mean for the next generation to be engaged?
I feel like, okay, so I kind of made a post about this the other day. Like we have seats at the table, right? And we've kind of carved our way, what our niche is or what our personal brand or our company brand looks like. But I think what we need to do now is make sure that we are making extra seats at the table. And I heard Grant Cardone actually make a comment on his Instagram being like, if you can't get a seat at the table, serve water. And that analogy just goes to show that like just get in the room. And so I feel like the more that we can help uplift and bring them on and take them under our wing, whether that's through internships or even as Sasha transitioned to a professor, like that mentorship is so crucial. And I wish I had more of that when I was starting out as a student. I think that's going to be the pivotal moment to help, help them get to where they were, so they can build their story along the way as well.
Yeah. I will definitely say, yeah, the people, I've never seen so many people reach out via LinkedIn in the past year going, can I just steal 10 minutes of your time? Can I hear your story? Do you have any advice? I always take the coffee, whether it's like, just always take the coffee, right? You never know what you're going to learn and how you can make an impact someone's day. And today I had 2 people, same thing. I couldn't help them because their niche was so specific, but I want to help that. And it was just amazing. And there is such a gap because as planners and people at our level of career, we're very busy, but there's not a lot of people carving out time to help and give people those chances. If I didn't have that TA role or someone who was a professor or someone stop and give me that attention and time to show that I was worthy, that I was able to expose myself to all these other different avenues and that I was capable, it's really simple things, but I just feel like we're going to have a gap. There's going to be a huge learning gap, and there could actually be more exit of our industry, especially those who are in programs right now enjoying it, if they don't have that support from up above. And that's why I think it's, we're really trying to do our part here, to listen and learn and give them, some guidance as well, right?
Yeah. Sam, are you also getting a lot of requests on LinkedIn or like in other ways?
Yeah, so every time that I'm invited back to George Brown, of course, that's just the college that I went to, so it's I'm an alumni of them. I'm always overwhelmed by the amazing messages, and you can tell they're like a little bit templated, which I love, because that means that George Brown is like, telling them like after a guest speaker comes, connect them on LinkedIn, and they've kind of got the same kind of format. But I think it's so crucial of a touch point, and it just helps to validate that you've inspired, and the topics that were discussed, they're sponges and they can take it home with them and now they can apply it. I love finishing a session and coming back to my LinkedIn and seeing all the new requests and comments, or even just like, hey, I saw this here and I met you here. LinkedIn is such a fabulous platform for that exact reason.
They actually do better response rate than people sometimes we do business with.
Totally.
And it's such a more like genuine and excitement. They're like, it's just like coming from a place of love. I don't know, it's really beautiful. So
yeah.
I always say like, just never stop that. I think it's so great.
I love it. What kind of questions are you guys getting in these requests? Is it like, how do I get into the industry? Or like, how do I develop in some way? Like, are they specific to career growth? Or are they ever asking you specifically, like directly, will you be my mentor? What kind of requests are you getting?
So I went to an in-person event on Monday, and you get the request like, oh, how can I intern at your company? And you're like, well, do you even know what my company is or what we do? And so I always rebuttal back and I say, hey, like, I want you to go and research 5 dream companies that you want to be part of, and like read up on what they're doing, what their corporate culture is, what events they're partaking in and managing, and then what roles you want to see yourself in. Start there and then kind of like do your research. But not everybody that you meet at these networking things are going to have an opportunity for you. And so I really admire the students who ask questions like, okay, what do you want to see on a resume? What would you hire? If you're not hiring now for an internship, what are you hiring for? And for me, I had answered back just saying like, you can't teach passion and you can't teach curiosity. You can teach someone how to run a show. You can teach someone how to pick an entertainment piece, but you really can't teach the drive, I gave an example that I had an intern a couple years back the previous agency, and instead of just coming to a roadblock and saying, hey Sam, this is the challenge that I have, what now? I said, no, come back with solutions. You had a roadblock here, but what else did you do? What other research did you have? And that's when you can't teach that little like oomph of a drive. And so I had just given that piece of advice in person, and they were all like, oh yeah, and they all like not took notes, but they were all like really engaged. It was really beautiful.
I bet their eyes all lit up, right?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. I will say it's like the questions and like the tenacity, the level of interest, like I was speaking with some of the chairs from the schools, and which is really, really positive news, is because there's a lot of colleges with special events or hospitality backgrounds where, you know, their programs were actually on the brink of closing for the future. And so it's great to see, you know, in Ontario market, for example, Guelph is fully back. George Brown has seen the highest levels of people be interested in the program ever, which is amazing. Hi, Brucey. But I just love the level of interest. And I think some of the things I took away from speaking with them is they wanted actual skill sets on how to negotiate, how to deal with uncomfortable conversations, how to really find the right clients. And I'm like, you're 21, like you're asking these questions. Like, I don't even know if I asked those questions. I figured it out by mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And so the level of preparedness that, and the level of just intention that they're having with the questions and trying to learn and really get something out of this, like the people that are interested are the right people for our industry. And it's just so amazing to see. And yeah, I can't wait to see what other, like how that person will succeed, whoever asked me that. I think it's just really smart. They're being super direct and trying to deal with the hard parts of our jobs, yeah, right? And our lives that come with this role, right, that we have in the industry.
I love that you guys are seeing this enthusiasm. My friends and family, and I've said this before on the podcast, like, they're like, oh, you like plan parties for
Oh no.
You know,
oh
like,
God.
I feel like my job isn't real. You spend all day looking on Google Maps. No, no. Yes, but like for work, you know,
I know,
real work. And so it's really exciting to hear that there's a younger generation out there who like takes this seriously and sees it as like a really viable career path. Because so many event planners I know have just sort of accidentally, I'm one of them, like accidentally fallen into event planning. So I think it's super cool that there's a lot of young folks who are being really intentional about this.
Can I just
But I
add
even
something,
think
Dora?
there's more on that. Sorry, go ahead, Sam.
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead, Derek. What? Sorry.
No,
Sasha,
someone
go
told me
ahead.
about production, and I'm like, it's just not a job that was necessarily always carved out. Like, how do you become a production manager, right? And yeah, so that's a shame. Like we haven't created that path. It's just been something we fell in, and in that specific thing, like how do you teach that to a younger generation that's interested, right? When they're so busy, return of shows are 300% of what they used to be. Like that scares me for the labor market down the road. And also like that's so many people's hopes and dreams, right? Like they want to work alongside that. So how do we, for me, it's like, how do we bridge that gap more? And I think that's why I'm trying to really insert myself here. But yeah, just an example of the polarity that we can have, right?
Yeah. And my point that I wanted to make was, I mean, me being in school was so long ago, but I feel like, you know, you were taught event planner, but at my networking event on Monday, I was telling the students, there's so many spin-offs. You don't have to be the entertainment specialist. You could be the graphic designer that, you know, supports the event designer. And so there's so many spin-offs within hospitality that you can go into. Not everyone needs to be an event planner. And so like even my first real corporate gig at a school was at a destination management company. I didn't really know what I applied for the role and I had no idea what I was applying for. I fell into it and like totally loved my job, but we didn't really talk too much about the DMC services that come with inbound meetings, you know? So really educating the next generation on like, hey, you don't have to follow the same path. You don't have to open your own event agency to be a successful event planner. You can be a supplier, and here are the different avenues of supplier. Like Sasha, like she is iconically at the best venues in Toronto, but she's the venue, you know what I mean? She's still producing and planning, but she's representing the venue. So there's so many different avenues, and I want to really like hone that in to the students to give them some like aspirations to reach for more than just being an event planner, party planner, you know?
Yeah, I love that. That is so true. This industry it just requires the hands of hundreds of people, right, to make any one thing happen. And all of us have specialties and interests, and all of us are part of that magic, making that magic moment, right? And it's to be the person with the spreadsheets or with the
totally
right?
Yeah, and like we make it look so easy, right? And I think like one thing, we all need to do is just, congratulate ourselves more and celebrate, right? We're always just on to the next event and the next programs, but like we have to kind of share, I think, a little bit more of the story that goes with it. And your platform here really does allow for that. So thanks, Dora, for what you do and how we can really kind of have real conversations about that, right? So and to show, that it's just not the one brush stroke of the same thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So my next question is like sort of tangentially related to what we were just talking about networking specifically. For us, we've spent so many years being sort of plied by drinks and free appetizers in a stuffy ballroom somewhere and having that be called networking, where if you're anything like me, you just talk to the people you know anyway, right? And it sounds like the younger generation is pretty good at like reaching out and talking to others, but I'm wondering, what are you actually seeing in terms of like how the younger generation wants to network? What are they learning about networking right now? What do they want? How do they want to network?
So I actually I hate networking. It's interesting because everyone's like, "Well, you're so good at it," and like my nickname that I was given is Sammy Networks. But as an extrovert, I hate interjecting conversation and like especially if I don't know them. And I kept telling the students on Monday, I said, it's never really like an easy thing. Everyone is nervous, everyone is feeling intimidated, and nobody wants to talk to strangers. I mean, there's probably like 10% of people that actually enjoy doing that, but the rest of us are still shaking in our boots to go and approach a stranger. So I love networking opportunities where there is some sort of an activation or an activity I can do with someone, and it's not so focused on like, hi, I'm Samantha, I'm the founder of this. It's more like, hey, I actually went to Bali last week, and here's, we can talk more on a human level, and that's where real connections happen. And I have to commend PCMA during the pandemic. We did these virtual sessions that were called Collective Connections, and we barely spoke on business, and it was just a rotation of travel stories, embarrassing moments, what do you want to do when you grow up? And it was more of a connectivity of human things as opposed to just like business talk. So I'm seeing more rise on an activity base as opposed to here's a great venue, here's some amazing cocktail. Actually, we're now pivoting away from cocktails and more on this mocktail trend of wellness and whatnot. I'm seeing that as a massive trend too. So, these poor students, they're feeling quite nervous to talk to these professionals, but I really love where we can just be human and no titles, no nothing. And then only then do we kind of like have a connection. And then we can kind of talk business and whatnot. That's my greatest type of networking.
I love that you're onto something with an idea where we can't, it's almost like, I would love it sometimes if it's like, you didn't have the name badge or you didn't have the title on there or you didn't have a business card and you're just forced to be in a room with one another where you like had to find your common connection, right?
Yeah.
I think the future of networking, and obviously as it relates to younger people, they do want that as an experience to be able to converse and like get their confidence. I think not necessarily an association, but like a membership I belong to is Monday Girl. And all women, but it's real conversation. Like there was one about, how to ask for a raise, right? Like how to just simple life things, right? That I think we all took for granted before the pandemic. And the demographic there is young, and it's about open calls of finding a new mentor and challenges. And it's just finding new ways to connect with one another. And again, that not same brushstroke of like, this is the only thing that's offered. You can pick and choose and kind of a la carte how you want to be part of the community at Monday Girl. And they do it very conscientiously about whether it's the 15-minute window that's in the morning that works for you, or there's an opportunity in the evening, and then there's a great on-premise event. But I will say though, the speaker content is exactly why the younger generation always would sell at this one event. It's people who are creating change, and that's why their on-site events always hands down sell out, is who they've really thought about putting on a stage and making it really qualitative and not 1,000 people where you just have a name badge and have a past appetizer. So I love that we can change the game now of how we network. And we have even, I feel like, learned from that too, far more quality than quantity, right?
There was one networking event that I went to, and the skill stuck with me. And this is whether you're 30 years in your industry or you're starting off as a student. If you're watching this, like, when you meet someone, you don't always have business for each other, right? And so, like, on Monday, I was talking to a hotel student. I'm not going to hire a hotel student, but the first thing that you're supposed to say is, hey, I don't have something for you, but here is so and so that I can introduce you to. And so I've done that same kind of tactic when I've been in a room full of event professionals and actually had seen collaboration and business happen because of the introductions that I had done. And then on Monday at this George Brown event, like, I didn't have much to add to the value, but I totally brought the student over and, introduced them to the hotelier that I had known there. And so it's about opening those doors again and asking for a seat at the table. Hey, not me, pleasure to meet you, absolutely, but here's Jonathan, and he's so and so at this. I think that tactic can be kind of played out wherever you are in your career path.
Yeah, I love that. I worked with an organization for a while that had at all their events, they had name tags where you put your name, just your first name, and your passion. And these name tags were simultaneously loved and hated because everybody was like, I don't know what my passion is. And if you went to multiple events by this organization, which most people did, they'd be like, do I use the same passion? Do I need to think of a new one? I don't know what my passion. But it was great. Like, nobody ever put their last name. So if they happen to be from like an influential family or something, you wouldn't know. They never put their organization or their title on their name tags. It was simply, what's your passion? And some people would put their passion as like, the industry they worked in, for example, like mental, health or something. But some people would put a personal passion like running or scuba diving, or like some people have some really interesting personal passions. And I thought that was really great because you can just read somebody's name tag and it's not, so what do you do? Because you're more than what you do for a living. And it really got them to talk genuinely. And in some cases, they'd be like, oh, you're into mental health. I actually run a nonprofit, like, where can we find synergy? And so it worked out really well for people to connect. And I love suggesting that to folks that I consult with, because it's so simple, right? But so effective.
Well, one thing that I realized that, and I got asked for it, and I was a little taken back by it, but there's a course that they that they teach at George Brown, and they're starting to change the curriculum because language and conversation, and how, like, quote unquote, how to develop an intimate conversation where there's connection and character being built versus facts. And they actually have a course, and it's how to speak with confidence. And I was like, good on you, right? Like, how, like, to have that and own it, and everyone's like, they take it like a sponge. Like, it's just beautiful that people do want to perfect that. And I think back even to like my family. Like, I think about when I come into this, I think about even like when I was a kid and what my parents went through, right? So thinking about the other end, right? Like, I was, the next generation as well, but we all were. And my mother was very shy, and she had to go to elocution classes, and she went to speech therapy, and she went to she was on tastemakers. Like, there was all these different things that you had back that, like, in there, growing up in the 60s and 70s, where that was how you were built to become a networker, right? And I don't know anybody that ever kind of had those things now, like when we were growing up, right? It was maybe your parents taught you how to shake a hand and you just kind of went at it, right? And I think there's so many cool things now out there, from like TikTok, and how all the wellness and mental health and like owning who you are is going to really translate in the next generation. I'm just super excited to see how people own their conversations.
Sorry, as I'm hearing you talk, Sasha, like, I'm thinking about that. Our parents were literally taught, as we were, to go shake a hand, be in an empty room or a room full of, four walls of people, where now, if we're activating the next generation, everyone has space for their social anxiety, the introvert. And so we really have to be sensitive to these these feelings now, right? So that's why, like, even more so, the old ways of how we used to network 100% has to change. We have to be more, pay more attention to, like, and also to, like, the poor students, they were virtual for 2-3 years, or even high school kids. So you're already losing out on 2-3 years of that social confidence that you would get from, presenting yourself. I'm having these epiphanies as we're having this
Right?
conversation.
Like you
So
can't ask someone like to what does it matter what they do? Like obviously it matters what do you do for a living, but the way that it kind of came across, we were like, where do you live? Where did you go to school? Blah blah blah. And it's like we are more than that as people, right? So, and it's almost like some people may not feel great when you ask those questions, right? And so we, as maybe the up here now, need to change our ways to make others more accepted when they're coming into our space as well. And I even think of our older generation too, like it can be very cliquey, right? And we need to be cognizant of that as we bring in these, future leaders.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. Right. Well, I'm going to go into my closing question here since we're at about 40 minutes.
Already?
I was like,
what? It flew.
Can we do this again?
I know. What's our next topic?
I will be so happy to have you on. We can do a yearly recap. You just let me know. So my usual closing question for all our guests is, what is the coolest event that you've been a part of, either as an attendee or as a producer?
I will say, okay, so as a producer, there's a lot of like heartstrings that are attached to this, but last year for Collision Tech Conference, we had 150 of the world's leading tech founders in Toronto, and we had to build out an extensive program for networking and collaboration, and we ran 4 different workshops simultaneously, and the feedback and the energy we did with Kevin Rempel, we did like sledge hockey, we did a cocktail experience at Bar Chef, which of course now is like heavily involved with the Netflix special of Drink Master. So that was a massive hit, of course. And it was truly beautiful to get all these big wigs in the tech industry, just to get them to be human and connect. And again, to this like human element of like, if they have business together, there's collaboration. Like it's at these conferences where you find your investment opportunities and your next partner and your next idea. So it was just really beautiful to be among these brilliant minds that are doing amazing things in the tech field and produce an event for them. Like I had a little bit of fangirl moment a couple of times, but ultimately, like they're just humans. They put their pants on one leg at a time too. And so designing an experience for them was very, very rewarding, and definitely like my coolest thus far, I would say, for sure.
And this wonderful woman has the contract again for this year. So can't wait to see what she does with it when they come to Toronto again in June. So yeah,
Thanks,
beautiful.
Sam.
Really
awesome.
beautiful.
Obviously, everybody there loved it.
Yeah.
It's amazing for the city, right? Like it's I think a conference like that can really inspire our future, right? And especially as we dig out, we're only 45-50% of where we're at in terms of our large scale events and in our current market in Toronto, right? But there's plenty of room to grow, and we need plenty of great people to support that.
Yeah. That's what's the coolest one that you've done or been? Come on, with all your amazing venues, like talk about
I honestly, I guess it's twofold. I think because I had this epiphany back to I'm finding and realizing that I got into the events industry so young, and I just didn't even pay attention to it. Like I'm having this just realization, I think, as now I kind of get more settled being at Live Nation, now that we've onboarded venues and our experiences are just thriving. And we found our lane of like, again, bringing our power of entertainment to people in special events. But my mother worked for Labatt's for about 20 years. And so, and funny enough, like she managed the sales team. She was an EA for the sales team, and literally her head sales guy is now my CEO at Live Nation. Like it's really weird.
That's so cool.
And yeah, it's just really, really strange how the world works. And that's why you were always at some of our experiences, whether it's, you know, you took the crap job and you just didn't enjoy it as young and then, you know, you move along. But my mom worked for Labatt's, and so she would throw this end of the year summer party. And this was like in the 90s, you know, there's not a lot of like pictures and social media. There's nothing, right? You just go to the event and you experience it and it's word of mouth. And it was at their president's backyard in Mississauga, and it was a huge property. And they brought in, it's the first like event that I'd been to where I was like, wow. They brought in elephants from the zoo.
Oh, wow.
They had the 49th Highlanders. I'm Scottish background, and I still remember the bagpipes in my head. Massive big tents. They had live bands. They had stilt walkers. Like I was like 8 or 9, like literally underneath the table, like you'd see in movies. And I was there from like the day that it would start. And because we were like a family, Labatt's was like a family for my mom. And I still remember even seeing the strike happen and them taking the elephant dung and putting it on the rose beds, right? Like just the level of detail that I remember from event planning being like, this was so cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I saw the tent come down and I'm just like, what do you get to do all day? Like, this is really, really cool. But that was at a time where we didn't see these big splashy events. It was like drink, appetizer, and call it a day, right? Like we've evolved so much in terms of impact and engagement. And I just can't wait to see what that's going to look like even further. Like I'd love to do a mood board and figure what that looks like. And if it's Justin Styles or I don't know, something else. But personally for me, from a biggest event production, I know I'm going on here. It's actually what got me to at Live Nation was planning the NHL hub during the pandemic. So I had literally 2 weeks to build a Olympic-sized tournament in a pandemic, where we actually like took over the city. We built like underground tunnels using the old Fairmont Porter tunnels underneath ground between Union Station and Fairmont, blocking off city, working with protocols we never had. It's something that almost broke me, but also made me, and connections and creating, as a leader that helped build community, right? I'm super grateful that we were able to do that bid during such a hard time, but sometimes you think you don't always have the toolkit, and I sure had the toolkit. So
love that.
Yeah, it was really, really grateful for it. And hockey players still love bananas and peanut butter sandwiches. So it's not always glamour, right?
Great.
Love that.
Oh, well, thank you so much, both of you. Sam, for people who want to learn more about you and your work, where can they go?
Find me on LinkedIn, Samantha Melly, of course. And if not on there, if you don't have LinkedIn, my website is like the symbol dash cc.ca. And then I'm linked to a couple of my social medias there. But LinkedIn's the best way to get me quirky, funny business, a whole authentic way to connect with myself and my brand.
Great. Awesome. And how about you, Sasha?
Yeah, same thing, LinkedIn. I'm my last name's a mouthful, Saladziak, but the easiest way is Sasha and then salad into the search function, and be sure to pop up for you. Great jumping off point to see again who we are. It's a great platform for us to really showcase all the idiosyncrasies about what we do and who we are.
Great. And I will be linking to both of your LinkedIns and your website, The Creative Connoisseur, in the show notes in Spotify. So thank you both again so much. And also thanks to our listeners and Meeting Protocol fans for checking out this episode. Don't forget to check out meetingprotocol.org, where you can sign up for our newsletter that includes links to all our new podcasts. It comes out once a month, a CMP tip of the month, and tons of resources for everything you need on your event planner, career, and CMP journey. So thank you again so much, ladies.
Honored.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really beautiful.